The courtroom smelled like old wood and broken promises. Naomi sat perfectly still in her chair, her hands folded on the table in front of her, her spine straight despite the weight pressing down on her shoulders. She wore a navy blue dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent, but money didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered except the words coming from Judge Crawford's mouth. After careful consideration of the prenuptial agreement signed by both parties, the judge said, his voice echoing in the nearly empty courtroom, and taking into account the financial contributions of both spouses during the marriage, this court awards the petitioner, Trevor Blackwood, full ownership of Blackwood Industries and all associated assets. Naomi felt her lawyer's hand touch her arm, but she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what she was hearing. The respondent, Naomi Blackwood, will receive alimony payments of $15,000 monthly for a period of 3 years, after which all financial obligations will cease. The prenuptial agreement is upheld in full. No company shares will be transferred. No additional assets beyond those specified in the agreement will be divided. Across the aisle, Trevor leaned back in his leather chair, and Naomi saw the corner of his mouth lift. That same smile he gave her on their wedding day 10 years ago. That same smile he probably gave Rebecca, his assistant, the woman he'd been sleeping with for God knows how long. She wanted to stand up. Wanted to scream that this wasn't fair, that she'd built that company alongside him, that she'd sacrificed her own career as a graphic designer to support his dreams. But her throat closed up, and all she could do was sit there while Judge Crawford finished destroying her life. Both parties are ordered to finalize asset transfers within 90 days. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down like a gunshot. Naomi's lawyer, Patricia, immediately started talking about appeals and next steps, but the words bounced off Naomi like rain on glass. She watched Trevor stand up and button his suit jacket, the Tom Ford jacket she'd given him for his 40th birthday last year. He turned and caught her eye, and for a moment, something flickered across his face. Regret? Guilt? But then Rebecca appeared beside him, her hands sliding into his, and whatever humanity had been there vanished. Rebecca wore a cream dress that hugged her pregnant belly. She wasn't showing much yet, maybe 4 months along, but everyone in that courtroom knew. The affair that started 2 years ago. The baby that Trevor wanted more than he wanted his marriage. The future that didn't include Naomi. Mrs. Blackwood, Patricia said more firmly. Naomi, we need to talk about the next steps. I need to call my brother, Naomi whispered. She'd been trying to reach Dante for 3 days. He was in Singapore working on some big finance deal, and the time difference made everything complicated. But she needed to hear his voice. Needed someone to tell her this nightmare would end. Trevor walked past her table without looking at her. Rebecca stayed close to his side, her diamond engagement ring catching the fluorescent lights. That ring cost more than the alimony Naomi would receive in an entire year. The prenup was signed fairly, Patricia said once they were alone in the courtroom. I'm sorry, but the judge ruled correctly according to the law. You signed away your rights to the company assets. I signed it the week after my father died, Naomi said quietly. I was planning a funeral and a wedding at the same time. Trevor said we needed to protect the business and I trusted him. Patricia's face softened. I know. And I wanted to argue undue influence, but without concrete proof that he coerced you, the judge wouldn't consider it. Naomi stood up slowly, her legs shaking. Everything she'd built for 10 years was gone. The company she'd named. The brand she'd designed. The life she'd crafted with careful precision. Trevor had taken it all with a prenup and a team of expensive lawyers who knew how to twist the truth. What do I do now? She asked. You take the alimony. You move forward. You start over. Start over. At 38 years old, with $45,000 a year in alimony and the condo Trevor had agreed to let her keep, the one-bedroom place they'd bought as an investment property, not even their actual home. Start over from nothing while he kept the penthouse, the beach house, the company, and the woman carrying his child. Naomi walked out of the courtroom into the bright June afternoon. Chicago traffic roared past the courthouse steps. People hurried by with coffee cups and cell phones, living their normal lives while hers crumbled into dust. She pulled out her phone and tried Dante's number again. Straight to voicemail. He was probably in a meeting. Probably closing another multimillion-dollar deal for the investment firm he worked for in Asia. Her little brother had done so well for himself after leaving Chicago 5 years ago. She was proud of him even if she barely understood what he did anymore. Something about international finance and venture capital. This is Dante. Leave a message. It's me, Naomi said, her voice breaking. It's over. He won. Trevor got everything. The judge upheld the prenup and she stopped, unable to continue. I need you to call me. Please. I need to hear your voice. She hung up and stood on those courthouse steps for a long time, watching the city move around her. Somewhere in a fancy restaurant, Trevor was probably celebrating with Rebecca and his lawyers. Somewhere in that city, people were getting engaged and married and making promises to each other. Promises that would break just like hers did. Naomi's phone buzzed. She grabbed it desperately, hoping it was Dante, but it was just Patricia asking her to come back to the office to sign some final papers. 1 hour, she thought. 1 hour ago, Judge Crawford had ended her marriage and her future. 1 hour ago, everything had fallen apart. She didn't know that in exactly 1 hour, everything would change again. Patricia's office was small and cluttered with legal books and case files. Naomi sat in the same chair she'd sat in dozens of times over the past 6 months, signing papers she barely understood while Patricia explained what each one meant. This time the papers were final. The divorce decree. The asset transfer forms. The documents that made her poverty official. You need to set up a separate bank account, Patricia was saying. Trevor's team will transfer the first alimony payment within 10 days. After that, it'll come on the first of each month for 3 years. 3 years. $45,000 a year. That was less than what Trevor spent on his car payments. What about the condo? Naomi asked. It's yours free and clear. No mortgage. He signed the deed transfer this morning. Patricia slid another paper across the desk. Small blessing, but at least you have a place to live. A 500-square-foot one-bedroom in Lincoln Park. It was nice enough, but it wasn't the 3,000-square-foot penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan that she'd called home for 8 years. It wasn't the home where she'd hosted charity dinners and business parties. Where she dreamed of raising children before Trevor told her he didn't want kids. With her. Naomi's phone rang. She looked down at the screen and her heart jumped. Dante's name flashed with a Singapore country code. I need to take this, she said, already standing up. Of course. Take your time. Naomi walked out into the hallway and answered the call. Dante. Naomi. His voice came through clear despite being halfway around the world. What happened? And just like that she broke. All the strength she'd been holding onto in the courtroom, all the composure she'd maintained while signing away her life, it all shattered. She slid down the wall in that law office hallway and cried while telling her brother everything. He won, she sobbed. The judge upheld the prenup. Trevor gets the company, the house, everything. I get $45,000 a year for 3 years and the investment condo. That's it. 10 years of marriage and that's all I get. Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. It was cold. Controlled. The voice of someone doing calculations in their head. Tell me about the prenup. When exactly did you sign it? The week before the wedding. Right after Dad's funeral. And Trevor pressured you to sign? He said we needed to protect the business. Said it was standard for entrepreneurs. I was so tired, Dante. I was planning Dad's memorial and trying to finalize wedding details and I signed it. Who witnessed the signature? Trevor's lawyer at the time. Some guy named Gerald Hoffman. Naomi heard typing in the background. Dante was already looking something up. What about the judge? He asked. Judge Crawford. Tell me about him. I don't know anything about him. He seemed fair during the hearings, but today he sided with Trevor on everything. Patricia said there wasn't enough evidence to challenge the prenup. More typing. Dante was silent for almost a minute. Naomi, I need you to send me every document you have. The prenup, the divorce filing, all discovery documents, the judge's ruling, everything. Send it to my email right now. What? Dante, it's over. The judge ruled. I can't afford to keep fighting. Just send me the documents. You're in Singapore. You can't. I'll be home tonight. Naomi stopped crying. What? I'm getting on a plane in 3 hours. I'll be in Chicago by tonight. Send me everything and don't talk to Trevor or his lawyers. Don't sign anything else. Don't make any decisions. Wait for me. Dante, you don't have to drop everything in. He took advantage of you when Dad died, Dante said, and his voice was sharp now. He made you sign that prenup when you were grieving and vulnerable. He cheated on you for years. He hid assets. And now he thinks he won. He did win. The judge said so. The judge is wrong. Dante paused. Or the judge is dirty. I'll find out which. Send me those documents now, Naomi. This isn't over. I can't ask you to leave your job and fly across the world for. You're my sister. You raised me after Mom died. You put me through college. You believed in me when nobody else did. I'm coming home and we're going to fix this. Naomi closed her eyes and leaned her head back against the wall. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to think that somehow this could be fixed. But she'd seen the look on Trevor's face in that courtroom. She'd seen him walk away with Rebecca. Seen the judge sign those papers. How? She whispered. How can we fix it? Leave that to me. Just send the documents and I'll handle the rest. I don't understand. You work in finance. You're not a lawyer. No, Dante said. But I know people who are. And I know how to follow money. Trevor made mistakes, Naomi. He had to. Men like him always do. We're going to find those mistakes and we're going to use them. Judge Crawford already ruled. You can't just overturn a verdict. Watch me, Dante said. I'll call you when I land. Stay strong. This isn't over. Not even close. He hung up before she could respond. Naomi sat in that hallway holding her phone, trying to process what had just happened. Her brother was flying home from Singapore. He thought he could overturn the verdict. He sounded so certain, so confident, so different from the kid she'd raised after their mother died of cancer 15 years ago. Patricia poked her head out of her office. Everything okay? My brother is coming home, Naomi said slowly. He thinks we can challenge the verdict. Patricia's expression was sympathetic but realistic. Naomi, appeals are expensive and rarely successful. The prenup was legally binding. I'm sorry, but you need to accept. Send me digital copies of everything, Naomi interrupted, standing up. All the documents. The prenup, the filings, the discovery, the ruling. Everything we have. What are you planning? I don't know yet. But my brother asked for them and he's flying halfway around the world to help me. The least I can do is send him the documents. Patricia hesitated, then nodded. I'll email them within the hour. But Naomi, please don't get your hopes up. The legal system rarely changes its mind. Naomi thought about Dante's voice on the phone. That cold certainty. That quiet rage. Maybe, she said. But Trevor made a mistake when he thought this was over. He forgot that I have a brother who doesn't give up. Who doesn't back down. Who's been waiting 5 years to come home and help me. She walked back into Patricia's office and finished signing the papers. But something had changed. 1 hour ago, she'd left that courtroom defeated. Now she had hope. Small and fragile but real. Trevor had won in court 1 hour ago. But Dante was coming home. And everything was about to change. Dante knocked on the door at 9 p.m. Naomi had been sitting in the tiny condo living room for hours, surrounded by boxes she hadn't unpacked yet. Trevor had given her 1 week to move out of the penthouse. She'd taken only her personal belongings, clothes, photos, the few pieces of art she'd bought before the marriage. Everything else belonged to him now. She opened the door and barely recognized her brother. 5 years ago, Dante had left Chicago as a 23-year-old kid with big dreams and a finance degree. He'd been skinny and nervous, excited about his job offer in Hong Kong but scared to leave his sister behind. Now he stood in her doorway wearing a suit that probably cost $5,000, his shoulders broader, his face harder, his eyes sharp and calculating. Dante, she breathed. He pulled her into a hug without saying anything. She broke down again, crying into his expensive shirt while he held her steady. I'm here, he said quietly. It's going to be okay. They sat on her second-hand couch. She'd had to buy new furniture since everything in the penthouse belonged to Trevor, and Dante pulled out his laptop. I read everything you sent me on the plane, he said. The prenup, the divorce filings, all of it. Tell me about the judge. Judge Crawford. He's been on the bench for 15 years. Patricia said he has a good reputation. Did Trevor know him before the case? I don't think so. Why? Dante pulled up something on his laptop and turned it toward her. It was a photo from a country club website showing Judge Crawford and a man named Richard Thornton on a golf course. Richard Thornton was Trevor's lead attorney, Dante said. This photo was taken 3 weeks before your final hearing. According to the club records, they've played golf together 6 times in the past 4 months. Naomi stared at the photo. That's not legal. That's judicial misconduct, Dante finished. A judge isn't supposed to socialize with attorneys who have cases before him. At minimum, it's an ethics violation. At maximum, it's grounds to overturn the verdict. How did you find this? I know people. Dante scrolled through more documents. I also had my team start looking into Trevor's finances. The prenup says the company was started with his personal funds and that you contributed no initial capital. Is that true? No. I put in $50,000 from my inheritance when Dad died. It was all the money I had, but Trevor needed it to lease office space and hire the first employees. Is that documented anywhere? Naomi thought hard. I wrote him a check. It was from my personal account. Do you have bank statements from that time? Somewhere. In storage maybe. She looked at her brother. Dante, what are you thinking? I'm thinking Trevor lied about the company's origins. If you contributed initial capital, The prenup might be invalid because it was based on false premises. I'm also thinking that a man who cheats on his wife probably cheats in business too. He pulled up more documents. Financial records. Bank statements. Corporate filings. I have friends who work in forensic accounting, Dante said. They owed me a favor. I had them do a preliminary scan of Blackwood Industries' public financial records. Naomi, there are irregularities. Money moving through shell companies. Expenses that don't match up with reported revenue. It's not definitive yet, but there's something wrong with Trevor's books. Naomi's head spun. You did all this in one flight? I made calls from the airport in Singapore before I boarded. Then I worked the entire 15-hour flight. I had my assistant coordinate with investigators here in Chicago. They've been working all day. Dante looked at her seriously. I meant what I said. This isn't over. But Judge Crawford already ruled. Then we get a different judge. We file an emergency motion to overturn the verdict based on judicial misconduct. We bring in the evidence of your initial capital contribution. We show that Trevor lied about the company's founding. And while we're at it, we investigate his finances and find out what he's been hiding. That's going to cost a fortune. I can't afford. I can, Dante said simply. I've done well in Singapore, Naomi. Very well. I have money and I have connections. Let me use them. She looked at her little brother, the kid she'd raised after their mother died. The teenager she'd helped with homework and college applications. The young man she'd driven to the airport 5 years ago with tears in her eyes. When did you become this person? She whispered. When I watched my sister sacrifice everything for a man who didn't deserve her, Dante said. When I heard her voice break over the phone telling me she lost everything. When I realized that being good and fair and trusting isn't enough in this world. Sometimes you have to fight. He pulled up another document. This is the name of a law firm that specializes in high-stakes divorce cases and business litigation. They're based here in Chicago. I've already spoken to the senior partner. He's willing to take your case. Dante, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you. We're going to fight this and we're going to win. His eyes were fierce. Trevor thought you were alone. He thought you had no resources and no options. He forgot that you have me. Naomi felt something stir inside her chest. Not just hope. Anger. All this time she'd been trying to be reasonable and fair. Trying to accept what the judge had said. But Dante was right. Trevor had lied to her. Used her. Taken advantage of her when she was grieving her father's death. And now he was walking away with everything while she got scraps. What do we do first? She asked. Dante smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who'd been waiting for this moment. First, we find proof that you contributed capital to the company. Do you remember which bank the check came from? First National. I still have the account. Good. Tomorrow we go to the bank and get 10 years of records. Then we meet with the new legal team and file our motion. After that, we turn over every stone in Trevor's life until we find what he's hiding. He's going to fight back. Let him try. Dante closed his laptop. I've spent 5 years learning how to move money across borders, how to track assets, how to find what people don't want found. Trevor is an amateur compared to the people I deal with every day. He has no idea what's coming. Naomi looked around her tiny condo, then back at her brother. 1 hour after the verdict, he'd called. Now he was here and everything felt different. She wasn't alone anymore. She wasn't helpless. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me yet, Dante replied. Thank me when we take him down. They stayed up until midnight going through documents, making lists and building their strategy. And for the first time since she'd discovered Trevor's affair 8 months ago, Naomi felt like she might actually survive this. More than survive. She might actually win. The law offices of Morrison, Chin and Associates occupied the entire 30th floor of a building in downtown Chicago. Naomi felt small walking into the conference room the next morning, but Dante walked beside her with the confidence of someone who belonged there. James Morrison himself led the meeting. He was 60 years old with white hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Miss Blackwood, he said, shaking her hand. Your brother has told me about your situation. I've reviewed the documents you sent over. This is one of the most egregious cases of marital misconduct I've seen in 30 years of practice. Can you help me? Naomi asked. I can do better than that. I can destroy Trevor's case completely. Morrison opened a folder. Let's start with the judicial misconduct. My investigator confirmed that Judge Crawford and Richard Thornton, Trevor's lead attorney, are golf partners. They've played together at least 8 times during your divorce proceedings. That alone is grounds for an appeal. But appeals take years, Naomi said. Which is why we're not filing an appeal. We're filing an emergency motion to vacate the verdict based on judicial misconduct. It's faster and more aggressive. We'll file it tomorrow morning. Dante leaned forward. What about the prenup? The prenup is more complicated, but we have angles to attack it. Morrison pulled out another document. Naomi, you told your brother you contributed $50,000 to start the company. Do you have proof? We're going to the bank after this meeting to get my old statements. Good. If we can prove you contributed initial capital, we can argue the prenup was based on fraudulent representations. Trevor claimed the company was solely his creation. If that's a lie, the entire agreement is suspect. A woman walked into the conference room carrying a laptop. Morrison introduced her as Elena Rodriguez, a forensic accountant. I've been looking at Blackwood Industries' financial records, Elena said, opening her laptop. There are significant irregularities. Money flowing through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Unexplained expenses that don't match any business purpose. And most interesting, a pattern of withdrawals that correspond exactly with the timeline of Mr. Blackwood's affair. She pulled up a spreadsheet. Look at this. 2 years ago, right when Naomi suspects the affair started, there are monthly charges to luxury hotels, restaurants, and jewelry stores. But these expenses are listed as business costs on the company books. That's fraud. Naomi felt her stomach turn. He used company money for his affair? Extensively. Over $200,000 in 2 years. And since you own no shares in the company according to the prenup, he essentially stole from what should have been marital assets to fund his mistress. Morrison smiled grimly. This gets better and better. What else did you find? The shell companies are interesting. They're registered in the Cayman Islands under different names, but they all trace back to Trevor. It looks like he's been hiding income from the IRS for years. Possibly millions of dollars. Dante's expression darkened. So he's not just a cheater. He's a tax fraud. Allegedly, Morrison said carefully. But yes, if these findings are accurate, Trevor has been committing serious financial crimes. We can't prove it yet, but we can certainly make his life difficult while investigating. There's one more thing, Elena said. Rebecca Anderson, the mistress, is pregnant. 4 months along according to social media posts. But look at this. She pulled up a bank statement. 5 months ago, Trevor made a $50,000 payment to a private obstetrics clinic. The timing suggests he's been planning this baby for a while. Possibly even before he filed for divorce. Naomi closed her eyes. She'd suspected Trevor had been planning to leave her for Rebecca, but seeing the evidence laid out so clinically made it worse. He'd calculated everything. The affair. The baby. The divorce. The prenup that would leave her with nothing. He thinks he's won, she said quietly. He thinks wrong, Morrison replied. By the time we're done, Trevor Blackwood will wish he'd never met you. Now let's talk strategy. They spent 3 hours going over every detail of the case. Morrison's team would file the emergency motion tomorrow. Elena would continue her financial investigation with the help of Dante's contacts in Singapore. And Naomi would focus on gathering every piece of evidence she had from the marriage. Emails, text messages, photos, anything that could prove Trevor's deception. One more thing, Morrison said as they were leaving. I need you to prepare yourself. When we file this motion, Trevor is going to panic. He'll try to intimidate you. He'll make threats. He might try to turn your friends against you. Stay strong and don't engage with him directly. Everything goes through me. I understand. Good. Morrison shook her hand again. Your brother hired the right team, Ms. Blackwood. We're going to fix this. After the meeting, Dante took Naomi to First National Bank. She requested 10 years of bank statements, and they sat in a small office while the manager printed everything out. It took an hour to find what they were looking for, but there it was. A check for $50,000 written to Trevor Blackwood on June 15, 15 years ago. 1 week after her father's funeral. 1 week before her wedding. This proves everything, Dante said, holding the statement. You contributed to the company. The prenup is based on lies. Naomi stared at her own signature on that decade-old check. She'd been 23 years old, grieving her father, trusting the man she was about to marry. She'd given him everything and he'd used it to build an empire that he claimed was his alone. I was so stupid, she whispered. No, Dante said firmly. You were in love. You trusted someone who didn't deserve it. That's not stupid. That's human. They took the statements back to Morrison's office. Elena scanned them immediately and added them to the evidence file. This is perfect, she said. Combined with the judicial misconduct and the financial fraud, we have a strong case. That night, Naomi couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Trevor in that courtroom, smiling at her like he'd won. kept seeing Rebecca's hand in his, kept hearing Judge Crawford's voice taking away everything she'd built. But now she had Dante. She had Morrison. She had evidence and strategy and hope. She picked up her phone and looked at Trevor's contact. Part of her wanted to text him to tell him that this wasn't over. But Morrison's words echoed in her head. Don't engage with him directly. So instead she deleted his number. Whatever happened next, she didn't need Trevor in her life anymore. Not his voice. Not his lies. Not his memory. She was done being his victim. Now she was going to be his nightmare. Morrison's team worked like a machine. Within 48 hours of hiring them, they'd filed an emergency motion to vacate Judge Crawford's verdict, served Trevor with new discovery requests, and begun coordinating with the Illinois State Bar Association to investigate the judge's relationship with Trevor's attorney. Naomi spent 3 days in Morrison's office going through every document from her marriage. Old emails where Trevor discussed business strategy with her. Text messages where she gave him advice about hiring decisions. Photos of them at company events where she was introduced as his business partner, not just his wife. Every piece of evidence that proved she'd been an active part of building Blackwood Industries, despite what the prenup claimed. Dante worked from his laptop in the corner of the conference room, making calls to his contacts in Singapore, Hong Kong, and London. Forensic accountants who specialized in tracing hidden money. Private investigators who could find offshore accounts. Lawyers who understood international finance law. On the third day, Elena Rodriguez walked in with a thick folder and a grim smile. We found something, she said. Everyone in the conference room stopped what they were doing. Elena opened the folder and spread out documents on the table. Trevor's shell companies in the Cayman Islands received payments from a Russian investment firm called Volkov Enterprises. Over $5 million in the past 3 years. Volkov Enterprises is currently under investigation by the U.S. Treasury for money laundering. Morrison leaned forward. Trevor took money from a company under federal investigation? He did. And he didn't report it on his tax returns or in his divorce discovery. He hid it completely. Dante pulled up something on his laptop. I know Volkov Enterprises. They're connected to oligarchs who are currently sanctioned by the U.S. government. If Trevor did business with them, he broke federal law. Naomi felt her heart race. Are you saying he's a criminal? I'm saying he's potentially facing criminal charges if this information gets to the right people, Elena replied. But more importantly for our case, he committed fraud during the divorce proceedings. He hid millions of dollars in assets. Assets that should have been part of the marital estate. Morrison stood up and started pacing. This changes everything. We're not just fighting a divorce case anymore. We're exposing financial crimes. Elena, I need you to document every single transaction between Trevor and Volkov Enterprises. Dante, can your contacts confirm the connection to sanctioned oligarchs? Already on it, Dante said, typing rapidly. Naomi, Morrison turned to her. I need you to think carefully. Did Trevor ever mention doing business with Russian investors? Did he ever travel to Russia or meet with anyone who might be connected to Volkov? Naomi searched her memory. 3 years ago he went to Moscow for a week. He said it was a tech conference, but he came back with a big investment deal. He was excited, said it was going to take the company to the next level. But he never told me details. That's when the Volkov payment started, Elena confirmed, checking her timeline. Do you have any photos or documents from that trip? Maybe. I took his photo in the airport before he left. I might still have it on my phone. She pulled out her phone and scrolled back 3 years. There it was, Trevor at O'Hare International, smiling with his carry-on bag, excited about his trip to Moscow. She thought it was sweet at the time. Now it felt like evidence. Send that to me, Morrison said. Every piece of the timeline matters. Over the next week, the case built momentum. Morrison's team interviewed 3 of Trevor's former employees who confirmed that Naomi had been deeply involved in the early days of the company. She designed the original logo, helped write the business plan, and sat in on investor meetings. One employee even had old emails where Trevor specifically referred to Naomi as his business partner. Meanwhile, Dante's investigators uncovered more shell companies, more hidden accounts, and a pattern of financial deception that went back years. Trevor hadn't just hidden money during the divorce. He'd been hiding money from the IRS for most of the marriage. He's going to jail, Dante said one evening as they reviewed the evidence. Not immediately, but if the federal authorities get involved, Trevor is facing serious criminal charges. I don't want him in jail, Naomi said quietly. I just want what's fair. What's fair is you getting half of everything he hid. What's fair is him facing consequences for lying to you, to the IRS, and to the court. What's fair is him losing. Morrison scheduled depositions with Trevor's business partners, his accountant, and Rebecca. Trevor's legal team fought every step, filing motions to block discovery and delay proceedings. But Judge Crawford was now under investigation by the state bar, so a new judge had been assigned to the case. Judge Patricia Winters was known for being no-nonsense and impatient with legal games. The deposition with Rebecca Anderson happened on a Friday morning. Naomi watched through a video feed from another room while Morrison questioned her. Rebecca looked scared. Her pregnancy was more obvious now at 5 months, and she kept her hands folded over her belly protectively. "Ms. Anderson," Morrison said calmly, "how long have you been having a relationship with Trevor Blackwood?" 2 years, Rebecca answered quietly. "And during that time did Mr. Blackwood give you gifts?" "Yes." "Can you describe those gifts?" "Jewelry mostly. A diamond necklace. Earrings. A bracelet." "How much would you estimate those gifts cost?" Rebecca hesitated. "I don't know exactly." Morrison slid a document across the table. "According to credit card statements, Mr. Blackwood spent over $100,000 at Tiffany & Company during your relationship. Did those purchases go to you?" "Yes." "And did he tell you where the money came from?" "He said it was his money. From the company." "Did you know he was still married at the time?" Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "Yes. But he said the marriage was over. He said he was leaving her." "When did he tell you about his plans to divorce his wife?" "About 6 months into our relationship." Morrison pulled out another document. "So approximately 18 months ago Mr. Blackwood told you he planned to divorce Naomi. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And yet he didn't file for divorce until 8 months ago. What happened during those 10 months?" "I don't know. He said he was waiting for the right time." "Did he discuss finances with you? Did he talk about protecting his assets during the divorce?" "Objection," Trevor's attorney said. "Speculation." "I'll rephrase," Morrison said smoothly. "Did Trevor Blackwood tell you directly that he was planning to ensure his wife received as little money as possible in the divorce?" Rebecca looked at Trevor's attorney, then back at Morrison. "Yes. He said she didn't deserve anything because she didn't work." "But Mrs. Blackwood did work, didn't she? She helped start the company. She contributed capital and time and ideas. Were you aware of that?" "No." "Trevor said he built the company himself." Morrison let that hang in the air. "One final question, Ms. Anderson. Is Trevor Blackwood the father of your child?" "Yes." "And did he know you were pregnant before filing for divorce?" "Yes." "We planned the pregnancy together." The deposition ended shortly after. Naomi sat in that room feeling numb. She'd suspected all of this, but hearing Rebecca confirm it so calmly made it real. Trevor had been planning to leave her for over a year. He'd gotten his mistress pregnant intentionally. He'd lied to everyone about how the company was built. Dante put his hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" "No," Naomi said honestly. "But I'm angry. And anger is better than sadness right now." "Good," Dante said. "Stay angry. We're going to need it." Morrison walked in with a satisfied expression. That deposition was a gift. Rebecca just confirmed Trevor committed fraud during the divorce proceedings. She confirmed he planned everything. And she confirmed he's been lying about your contributions to the company. "What happens now?" Naomi asked. "Now we go back to court and we destroy him." The article hit the Chicago Tribune's website on a Tuesday morning. Naomi was having coffee in her tiny condo when Dante called her. "Have you seen the news?" he asked. "What news?" "Check the Tribune. Business section." Naomi pulled out her laptop and navigated to the website. The headline made her breath catch. Blackwood Industries CEO under investigation for financial fraud and tax evasion. The article was detailed and damning. It named Trevor specifically, outlined the shell companies in the Cayman Islands, mentioned the connection to Volkov Enterprises, and quoted anonymous sources familiar with the divorce proceedings who confirmed Trevor had hidden assets from his wife and the court. "How did this happen?" Naomi asked. "We didn't. I called in a favor," Dante said. "I know a journalist who specializes in corporate corruption. I gave him enough information to start investigating and he found the rest. Everything in that article is documented and verified. Trevor can't claim it's lies." Naomi read through the piece. It mentioned the divorce, the prenup, and the judge who was now under investigation for judicial misconduct.